Are you super ready?
Yeah, I'm super ready.
Super ready too. Okay, rolling. Cool. Let's do it. Hi there. Welcome back. In frame this evening, we have Drew Callner. Welcome to the show,
Thank
Drew.
you. Thank you so much for having me.
Fantastic. We know Drew from a few different projects. Let's see, Devil All the Time, Netflix production. We also worked with Drew on HBO and Sand Mountain? Sand Mountain. And then also Powerless, which is one of Drew's personally produced shows, correct?
Yeah.
So we've touched bases with Drew several different ways and times and things. So Drew here is a director and writer. Director-writer, that's your title. Right?
Yeah.
He does a little bit of everything, so it's it's hard to put it in a box.
Yeah.
Let's just start by you telling me a little bit about yourself, how you got started, and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for having me. So I just kind of fell into the film world, so to speak. I don't have a lot of formal training, whatnot. Just kind of had to grind up from the bottom. And it took me a lot to kind of get there. I'm originally from Seattle and try to bounce around kind of, doing what everyone else was doing, majored in business and majored in psychology and kind of the early stuff.
Wow,
and
you tried a little bit of everything.
Yeah, tried a little bit of everything.
Trying to find your niche.
Yeah. And I guess I was always captivated by film and by, storytelling through visually, but
there's something specific that drew you to that, or just kind of, it was just a thing, it just happened?
Well, I come from a family history of doing it. My grandfather, my uncle were both filmmakers. But I was never, I guess, the sharpest academic kid, but visuals and through visual learning, I was always really sharp. And so I knew there was something going on. My imagination was always on a step others than kids. So art class and stuff like that, I would always excel, but any other school, I was a really poor student. And so I also never got presented to me as an opportunity. I could actually go into film, or I could actually make money doing this, So I just played along with everyone else, and I went to college, and I tried studying, and I tried being a good little boy, a little 9 to 5, and there's been always something pulling me back to what's inside my heart, what's inside my passion, but that was a rocky road and a confusing road to kind of get there.
It's crazy how your passions call out to you even though you have no idea what the heck it is.
Absolutely. And it's the more you kind of go off that path, the more things are going to be put in your path to kind of pull you back.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened with me. I've always been, even though I neglected what was going on inside of me for so long, at the same time, I've always been very observant to things pulling me back towards my heart. And I guess my heart has always been working with people and somehow being behind the camera in some way. So, yeah.
Okay.
So from Seattle, and tried to go to Art Institute in Seattle, which was a major program, and it was very expensive at the time.
So is there a reason that were you feeling the call at this point, or was it just kind of I've tried everything else, I'll try this too?
Yeah. I was feeling the call for sure, okay. But I thought it was a trade school in the sense that you paid a lot of money and you walked out of there with a certificate and you were set the rest of your life. I didn't know that, no, you can actually fail out of this, and there's heavy competition, and you really shouldn't go to a trade school unless you are ready to do some heavy work. Right. So I was coming out of just a pretty crazy party life of high school and early college, and I thought I would just drop into a really easy art school and this would all work out.
Walk away with a set life.
Yeah.
No more efforts needed.
No.
Didn't work out that way?
No, not at all.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I was probably 20 to 21, but I would say mentally I was like 15. And so I ran up against a little bit of struggle, a little opposition, and I just ducked out. I ran, which is what I'd been doing with the other college attempts. So I ran. My family had moved back to Alabama, and I decided to come here. My initial thoughts of Alabama were just a jumping place for me to go into the military. And the military was kind of a last resort. I was like, now it's time to get my shit straight, you know? In my head, it was like, what does a young man do if he can't excel in college? Well, I guess he goes in the military. You know, like I was wild.
It's so funny to me that people that try all these other avenues and things that, like, you know, you weren't expecting to put effort in at the art institutes. You're like, I'll go into the military. I'll go have someone else kick me in the butt.
Yeah.
It works, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's great.
But I mean, that was the same thing too. I guess it was like an immature way of thinking. It was like, I'll go in there and they'll fix me. They'll fix me and I'll be good the rest of my life. And what I found is just as many lost like people were all, that's who makes up the military, you know? Maybe 2% like really knows they want to be in there.
Right.
And it's
it
headstrong.
always happens so young too.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of people that are searching, and when you don't find what you're looking for, you go into the military, which I hear is a fantastic experience in itself.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
totally.
You learn a lot,
yes.
right?
Yeah, totally. And like me, so I lost my father when I was 11. So there was always this sense of like, maybe I'll find some sort of fatherly direction in the military. So that's what attracted to me too. And I tried to go into the Navy, which I have a family history of my family in the Navy. And since I was rambunctious and I was wild in Seattle, like there were some like basically dings on my record that prevented me from going to the Navy. So I tried the Coast Guard and they were like, absolutely not. If the Navy won't let you, we're definitely not. So then I kind of went down the row and I eventually got to the Marines. And what I found was the Marines will pretty much take anyone. And they were very eager to take me because this was right at the start of the Iraq-Afghanistan conflict. So me being naive and just, you know, like bouncing around life like a pinball machine, I was like, okay, let's do it. So I went into the Marines, I mean, pretty much strung out on like 3 or 4 different drugs, thinking this will just change my life. And I made it through boot camp. So I found like an inner strength in myself that was, I never knew I had. You know, I did find discipline, but what it did not help was it kind of ignited this like criminal inside myself, you know, like it didn't give me structure like I thought. You know, it gave me structure in weird things like organization and physical fitness and determination and stuff like that, but it didn't give me any sort of like life guidance. And so it just made me a really strong, determined kind of sketchball, which I already was. And so I made it pretty far in the Marines and I did really well, but I eventually got into a lot of trouble. And I started getting thrown in jail and getting dings on my Marine record pretty early on, like within a year. And eventually got thrown in military prison and then eventually got processed out. So now I was just kind of shot back out, like this great hope of...
Still lost as ever.
Yeah, still lost as ever. I was like, I guess I'll go back to Alabama. So I came back and started doing the same job thing, you know, sales, waiting tables, bartending, back to sales, and that whole like cycle.
Right. So what was your moment that brought you to your passion? Like, is there that this happened or you went on set for something? I mean,
well, so what happened was eventually like I got really bad on drugs for a long chunk of time I'll never get back in my life, but it was instrumental in the fact that it led me to it leveled my foundation. of like my ego and everything I thought that I was, like it just leveled it. So now I just like don't know who I am. I'm sitting in a halfway house. I'm well into adulthood. I've lost everything. No money in my checking account, no car. And I realized like I still had a passion to make film. So over the weeks and the times, starting to get a job, get my life back, I borrowed a camera and I started semi-writing a documentary. And the documentary was going to be, once again, from my heart, saying like a very raw account of what I had been through, but also what all these people that I was around had been through. And that's when Recovering Hope started. And Recovering Hope was a feature-length documentary on heroin addiction and recovery. And it made like 3 different kind of phases in its life. Like people I would work with, it would go for about a year and then it would die off. And eventually the last kind of people I got to really stuck with me, and we rocked it, you know? So it was like.
So how long did it take for this to come to?
About 3 years total.
That's a long project.
Yeah. But when it came out, it did really well, and I was shocked. I never intended it to be made for the masses or anything.
So you were doing it for yourself.
Totally, myself, maybe some friends. Yeah. But it got put on a big scale, especially in Birmingham, because there was a huge need. So it sold out 2 premieres here. We eventually got distribution for iTunes, Netflix, Google Play. Sorry, not Netflix, Amazon. We got put on the cover of B Metro, and it was a great start for my career as a director, but it's what I needed to show me, like, hey, people are watching. Like people are watching, and people want the real. They want real content. It doesn't matter what your production budget is. They want real stories from the heart. And that's where I was like, there's a niche in filmmaking. If you can translate what people are really saying, if the viewer can see like who's on screen is a real person and they can relate in any sort of way. We got so much support from people that had nothing to do with heroin addiction or anything. They just understand like struggle in life and people really putting their heart out there. And through that film, now they understood lots of opiate addiction and recovery and had no clue that there was an issue in Birmingham. I got support even from as far away as like Great Britain. People saw that film, and it was just crazy. So, and then I came back and I tried to make a lot of safer films. I tried to make a lot of stuff that had nothing to do with addiction, because that freaked me out. I was in that film, my mom was in that film. It was just a little too heavy to rewatch it and edit it. It was like, shit, like maybe I shouldn't have put my stuff out there that heavy. And so I did like a boxer documentary. I did some music videos, and I was like, I want to do film, I just don't want to go that intense again. And I started making stuff, and it all sucked. It all sucked, and I feel really bad for the people I worked with, because like it was very selfish of me. Like if I'm not in it, I'm just kind of doing it for a paycheck. I hate to say that on camera, but that's the truth, And so then this summer, I decided to write and try it again. I wrote a very personal story, based off personal story, that were 2 sides of addiction: me in addiction and me in recovery. And they're both showing struggle in life. And so I wrote, directed, and acted in that. And that's Powerless, and that's out right now in film festivals right now. So far, so good. Got submitted to like 15, and 3 off the bat went ahead and accepted it. One film festival gave us a notice of recognition, which was really cool. So it means like, okay, people still want real stuff. Like, it's amazing.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you so much.
That's really exciting.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
So is there a part, so you wrote, directed, acted, is there any one of those three that you actually prefer doing over the other? If you're working on a project, is it always you doing all of the above?
No, yeah, like so far, like all these hats I've had to wear in my career and in the film industry have always been because I'm just paying my dues. I'm either paying my dues, and like with my own projects, it's like production budget. There's always been one goal, and it's just really clear to me, and that's to direct.
Okay.
So, but what I've learned over time is, a lot of these directors we see on Netflix and everything, they're also writers too. So if I really want to direct, I need to be writing as well.
Right.
Like I need to equally be as good as a writer as I do a director. So.
Well, fantastic. So do you have any upcoming projects? Anything you're working on now? Hopes and dreams?
Yeah, I'm writing a feature-length film right now called Cell Block D, or that's the working title.
Cell Block D?
Yeah,
okay.
That's just
Sounds
the working.
Exciting.
Yeah. I'm about 50 pages into probably a 90 to 100 page script, and it's going to be a full-length narrative. I mean, I'm shooting for the moon on this one, about the time in the Marines, the time in the Marine brig. And just like, I met a lot of war heroes in there that had been either wrongfully convicted over in Iraq and Afghanistan. There was also just a black market of kind of criminal activity going on in the brig that I don't think anyone's ever kind of had any sort of picture, because these are the best of the best. These are the few, the proud, the Marines.
Right.
But there's also just a lot of like lost men in there too. So it's showing a lot of vulnerabilities and like just an insight into the most badass military force, but it's real. Once again, it's real accounts. So writing that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Trying to keep it real. Like once again, I tried to write that safe and I just couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. I was like, I know this might rub up on some people, but this is really what I saw and this is what I experienced. And like, so I'm not just gonna, I think people want the real. Yeah. They want to see vulnerabilities,
I agree.
But I was like, man, so much goes into writing a script. I mean, just like,
I can't imagine.
And just like any like art piece, you're just like, you just want it to be easier, and it just won't. And I think that's
nothing that's worth doing.
Yeah, no, right? Fucking true, man. So true, including school.
Including school.
Yeah.
But then there's the whole thing with school, though. It's not everyone is cut out for school. It's just not an atmosphere that's built for everyone across the board.
Yeah. I know. So. I had a tough time because they're like, what do you want to study? And I'm like 18 years old, smoking so much weed and drinking, and all my friends are like making so much money selling drugs, and I'm like, what do I want to study? Okay, my dad was a psychologist, I'll go to psychology. Mm-hmm. Everyone's like, oh yeah, that's an easy degree. And I'm like, cool. Let's just get a degree. Mm-hmm. And I started in, and like first semester of psychology is what everyone takes as a freshman. Fairly easy. I'm not that easy, and then like second semester came and they were like, okay, your starting paper is minimum 10 pages. I was like, whoa. And then they gave me like the course load for the next like 2 to 3 years. Just to get a bachelor's. Mm-hmm. With a bachelor's in psychology, you can't really do anything anyways. It just leads you into a master's. So like,
all this work in front of you.
Exactly, to like maybe never use it, So I was like, okay. And then I was like, well, business, right? A business would be a good degree. And then the same thing, like first quarter semester of business, you're like, oh, okay, these are like freshmen, this is easy. It's all like the history of business. And then like you see the course load and you're like, dude, maybe I don't care about business that much, like it's not, damn, what can you do with a business bachelor's, That's like generic, like everyone has that, like, and there's people that can't get work with that,
Accurate.
So
accurate.
I think if I do ever go back to school, it'll be something that I can totally apply, or a trade, like really either go back and really do art school for like cinematography or something. I know if I would have stayed at the Seattle Art Institute, regardless how expensive that was, the connections I would have made. Because I do remember people from that time frame, and they're doing real well. Because just the connections, they might still be paying off student loans. That's a really expensive school, but they have all jumped. They got thrown into the news, into HBO, into all these stuff, and they've just worked their way up. So like, you might just be paying for the connections alone.
Maybe.
You know?
Do you think with your experience now going back to a school like that, you would be more mentally prepared?
Yeah. Like mentally now, like I read tons of books on my own. I don't feel like forced to, and it's funny because a lot of these books I'm reading are like books that they wanted me to read in intro English
different
classes. When
you're being forced.
Yeah. I like, it's like my brain did not develop until I was like 32, 30,
Right. Yeah,
you
that
know?
happens.
And so it's like, man, I wish I would have still had all this like family money, you know, back now. I think that's a weird thing to like push a lot of people into this major life commitment at 18 years old. 18, I was like barely 14 mentally. I was running and gunning, just cared about
You're supposed
party.
to know exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't last long, and so I think that's how it is with a lot of people. And by the time all my family money and inheritance, any sort of like college money I could drip out of any corner of my family was completely gone. Now I started jumping in all these financial aids, you know, and loans, and just got deep in that. But I was still just, what can I do? Like, I guess I'll try business again. I tried being an EMT one time, you know, and I made it pretty far, but then it was like, oh, but now you have to go to paramedic school, which is another $30,000. And I was like, okay, do I really want to be a paramedic? You know? So
the answer is normally no when you're looking at the bill.
Exactly. Yeah. I just wanted to be a firefighter, you know, like, what's all this? Yeah. So, but I do, one thing that really bugs me, and this will never go away until I get it, is that I quit. That, like, when I have a son, I don't want him to be like, oh, well, my dad didn't get a degree. Like, it's not that big a deal. But what he won't see is how much pain it brought me from not having a degree and having to work all those shit jobs for like 2 decades.
Yeah.
You know?
To make up for the fact that you didn't stay for that 4 years.
Exactly. And so like, one thing I really want is to go back and just like do it for myself. Because deep down I know, I can say like, oh, I'm not a school person, all this, but deep down I know it's because I quit. It's like running a marathon. At some point I just was like, oh, my leg hurts, I'm cramping. And I just walked off.
Can't do it.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, the thing is, it's like the pounding on my leg, it's the wrong shoes, like excuse. But I quit. And I quit. I went to 5 different colleges. I quit each time.
Yeah.
You know? And so like deep down, I'm like, okay, this is gonna, but even you hear about people going back at like 50, 60, and they probably don't need to go back, but they do.
Yeah.
So they can like die knowing that
I did accomplish it.
I did accomplish it. Yeah. And I think I've gone through enough now, like that I've gotten through, that I think I could weather 3 or 4 years of school. You know? And it drives me friggin' crazy that there's these little punk ass 18-year-olds that don't even know how to fucking shave or, you know, brush their teeth, and they're popping out with all these degrees. I mean, these kids look like they're 15 now. I'm sitting here like, you know, turning 37 next year, and I'm just like, dude, like, yeah, you don't think you could go in there and just muscle it out? Like, you can do this, you know?
That little sport,
yeah,
you can figure it out.
Like, this guy doesn't even know manners. He doesn't have any life experience. He hasn't been raked through the coals. He doesn't know what like true life is. But like, so that bugs me a little.
Wouldn't it be crazy to like actually have to do life before deciding what you're gonna do with the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I think it's insane that it's the standard, like, oh, you just graduated high school, get your butt back in school. Figure out what you're gonna do for the rest of your life.
Well, a lot of,
having no
there
idea.
are countries that like either do like a mandatory military year or two for boys and girls, or, a lot of countries will do like 1 or 2 years of traveling. And in that 1 or 2 years of traveling, like they get their footing. Yeah, because traveling's like the best, education there is. Meeting other people, getting your wits, having to go through like situations where you're terrified.
Yep.
I mean, when
Figure it out.
I mean, rather than like, what subject do you want? And you're like, I can't plan out the rest of my life at 18, And I think it's a little insane when people can. It's like, okay, you know what you want to do. You know who you want to be married to. You know exactly how your life's going to look. At 18, that's saying a lot, More to you if you do, but like, I think we all know now that we're way past that age that like it didn't work out for anyone, so. Hey.
Hey, what's up?
Oh, yeah. They want us to wrap up.
Oh, I thought we had already wrapped up.
Yeah.
We wrapped up once. You told us to keep talking, so here we are, talking. Okay, well, for the second time, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
We are here in Frame with Drew Callner. I really appreciate you being here. It's great talking, catching up, learning more about you.
Thank you.
Catch you guys next time.
Y'all keep your eyes out for Nuthouse. They're about to take this game by storm. You heard it from me. Just watch.
That's the evil plan.
Yeah.
I think that's a wrap, guys.
Hell yeah.
Okay, put a frog in it.